Hi, everyone. Welcome in. Betsperts Golf here for the Farmers Insurance Open. Riding solo today, solo yesterday as well. So you're getting way too much of me by myself. Ron, dad duties yesterday. Andy on the struggle bus today, feeling pretty sick. So just me. We'll keep it short and simple today. If you want to check out the Monday show where I did more of a course preview, event preview type situation, check that out. Again, Betsperts Golf, wherever you listen to podcasts or here on the YouTube channel as well. You can check that out. I just put up my betting article, my outright picks for the week. That's live and free on the site for you to check out. A little bit of a front end preview there as well to get an understanding of the course and what's going on this week. So you can check that out as well on the site. You probably know if you're watching this that we have a little bit of a different week. We have no Sunday golf. Everything is moved up. Golf starts tomorrow. So Wednesday golf, they get out of the way wisely of conference championships on Sunday. This is something they did a couple years ago. And I think it was really smart and they've stuck with it. And, PGA Tour is a whipping boy at times for decisions that they have made and continue to make. But this is a win for them. This is pretty smart. Get out of the way of the NFL on Sunday for sure, right? It's just not something you want to go up against. I'm sure they've experienced that with the ratings of the last couple of weeks. But typically, Torrey historically has been a spot where typically draw a bigger audience. That goes back to Tiger's run of winning here, I think 4 years in a row, has won multiple times here previously. So this has been a good anchor start of the season for the non-golf hardos out there. So golf starts tomorrow. So one and dones, DFS lineups, showdown. It's a good showdown week with the 2-course rotation. Get those betting cards, everything in tonight. Make sure you don't have to mess around or you don't get that extra day. So it is a good showdown week on the DFS side. If you do play DFS, round by round showdown here, we do have a course rotation, not 3-course rotation like last week, but we do have the South course, the more difficult course, longest course on tour. Again, fifth most narrow fairways on tour, thick rough, 4-inch rough, small greens, difficult scoring conditions, very long golf course, difficult scoring conditions. The field will rotate on Wednesday and Thursday, playing one of those rounds on the North course. North course, pretty standard, 7,200 yard, par 72. You basically have to make your hay on your one round on the North course from a scoring standpoint. Ron had it in his preview. The winner on average in the last handful of years is like 5.5 strokes under par on the North course. North course plays about 2.5 strokes easier than the South course. So over the last handful of years. So you got to get it done on the North course. So if you're building showdown lineups, don't mess around with anyone on the South course. Don't try to get unique, trying to play the ownership game. Do that with guys that are unique on the North course. You do the same thing, go back to the well, play showdown on Thursday. Again, North course only. If you make the cut, again, standard 2-round, 36-hole cut here. Your rounds 3 and 4, Friday and Saturday, will be on the South course. So again, 3 rounds for cut makers on the South, that 1 round on the North. Play showdown. It's a great opportunity. There will be people that will fire up players that they bet on that are playing on the South, and they'll be not necessarily dead to rights, but massive advantage to just have a lineup full of those guys. So again, this is a major championship venue. It's hosted, recent, I think 2021 US Open. We know the PGA Championship, US Open, love long, narrow, thick, rough, tough type tests. I've heard some people talk, golf architect hardos are really, really hard on Torrey Pines. I get it. It is an absolute beautiful lot of land. and the golf course is fairly uninspiring. Just from a hole-to-hole standpoint, they don't really differentiate from hole to hole. There's not a lot of water damage or trouble here. Obviously, you're playing on the cliffs of La Jolla in Southern California. It is aesthetically pleasing to have on the TV. The golf course itself isn't necessarily a trying track, and from a strategy standpoint, it is very much grip it and rip it, club head cover off. You need distance here. We've seen that, and I walked through some of that data. Losing some of our tools yesterday to show you how it is a driver heavy, distance heavy track. So let's build a model, see if we can find some guys that maybe haven't popped in some of the models that I've already built, and try to do something a little bit different today. And then maybe see if there's some other opportunities down the board, whether it's finishing positions, some guys that maybe we want to target in matchups. Let's run through some stuff here. So using the rabbit hole here on Betsperts Golf, we're going to back out a little bit. I'm going to go with a longer time frame. Let's go last 2 years. Again, it's probably one of the most, couple of these are the top key stats this week. Really important ways to kind of, filter out some of the other data that I don't think we want in our data pool this week in terms of trying to find winners here at the at Torrey Pines. So I'm going to look at the last 2 years. I want to look at scoring conditions, very difficult and difficult. I want to pull out anything that is not that, because again, even though that's going to make up the majority of the sample probably over the last couple of years, I want to filter that out. Now, rule of thumb, and it will change based on the time frame. This really matters. Your rounds, number of rounds. You can really start to overfit filtering certain conditions, and your sample size is really small. Be very careful there, because you're starting to get a data set that's just going to be a little bit noisy. We really want something that's just, especially some of these foundational stats, we want them to be, a sample that's worth its weight a little bit. So what you can do, because you're going to get this in the early season, we have obviously an influx as not being a signature event of Corn Ferry grads, or just, again, with all these withdrawals at the top, which is another interesting subject here with, Xander not coming, dealing with an injury, Morikawa withdrawing, Cantley's got a TGL match. So he's not here. Interesting to see what happened first. Was it TGL or just Cantley saying, I'm not going to go to the Farmers anyway? SoCal guy, here very often. And then you get, Akshay withdraw, Harry Hall, just a bunch of guys not teeing it up here this week. So the field significantly easier than, or weaker, I guess I would say, than normal. But again, sample size matters a lot here. We do have the ability to turn on a minimum round feature. So it's basically going to pull anyone out of the data set that doesn't meet the minimum requirements of rounds played. Because again, you could have some of these guys that are just 1 or 2 rounds, and they're tops in one of these categories, and it just messes up the weights of the model. So last 2 years, I'm just going to put a 16 round feature on. Again, I'd probably want to do something even bigger, but we'll see what comes out here. Last 2 years, who's been the best when the scoring conditions are difficult and very difficult? All right. So top of the model, strokes gained total: Hideki, Homa, Ludwig, Lowry, Sanjay. Finau right behind. So your top 6 is kind of your top 6 in the betting board for the most part. That all tracks. This is really where the best golfers in the world separate themselves. It's not on the Birdie Fest. These are all professional golfers that are all very good. They can all go to your Muni and post birdies. But really good golfers separate themselves when the test is harder. So this top 10 kind of shows that here. The Gala not too far off. Steven Yeager played well here last year. Jason Day is fantastic course history. Justin Rose, a previous winner. Bramlett loves this place. That makes sense. Dietrich as well plays his best when the test is a little bit harder. So this is this is very difficult and difficult. We'll add this to our model. All right, I'm going to make a note for myself. You don't have to do this when you're adding it, but it helps when you get to the back end and you're having to throw some weights on it. Difficult scoring. All right, it's the last 2 years. Let's do the same thing. We'll go last 2 years. We'll turn difficult and very difficult scoring off, and we'll look at long and very long golf courses. This is, again, the longest on tour, stretching out a little over 7,700 from the tips. We'll look at the same time frame, 2 years, keep the same minimum round feature on, and see who plays their best when the courses are long. To me, this is the best way to go about looking at proximity ranges. Long iron play paramount this week, but when I put long iron play or proximity ranges in a model, right, I can go in here and I can mess around with overall proximity. I can mess around with proximity from the fairway, from the rough. I'm putting it in the model, and I'm painting it even across the golfers, across the field. And I think personally, and I know people build models, and again, you can go into this view expert ranking section and you can find models from really smart people. Ron's got his model in here, Matt Vicente, Sports Illustrated, Tapping In Podcast, Joe I, Tour Picks. You could find Andy Lack's model, some other folks, Steve on Andy's team. Really smart people building really good models. And you're going to find people building models with proximity ranges, and that's okay. Personally, I think that it's a noisy way to build because you're basically having to give it a weight that, Brant Snedeker's in this field. He's not hitting the same amount of 150 yard irons than Ludwig is, right? They're just shot distribution and proximity is going to be different. So they're going to have an uneven amount of shots from different ranges. By doing it this way, longer golf courses, it kind of tells the story that I think we're trying to do by doing the proximity thing, or the 150 to 175 bucket, or the 250 plus bucket. This, I think, does a better indicator because it just kind of encapsulates what the golfer does himself versus compartmentalizing that. I hope that makes sense, but I think this is a better way to do it. Again, you could do this and look at just approach if you want to see how they do an approach on long and very long golf courses. You can see in this Andrew Putnam, again, 50-round sample, pretty solid. Hideki. Now, part of that for Putnam is because the length, it could be shorter, that he's forced to lay up. And you have that here too, because some of these are 3-shot par fives, and all of a sudden you're getting yourself into a bunch of like sub 150 approaches because you laid up in par fives, right? So that's why this is a better way to do it, in my opinion. But if you look here, I think ball striking is a great way to do this here on long and very long golf courses, because really what we're trying to do is get a sense of who can hang off the tee and who is also going to be able to be dialed in on their approach game. Because again, ball striking, combination of off the tee and approach. So let's do it that way. Ball striking, long and very long golf courses. Woodland at the top. Tony Finau, Hideki Matsuyama, Jonathan Vegas, Doug Gim, Ludwig, Smalley, Homa, Kevin Yu, Kurt Kitayama. Round out the top 10. Get some other names that we saw right in the top of the strokes gained total, not too far behind. And again, by doing this, we're taking the putting out of it. And I think that's probably a good way to do it. So ball striking, long and very long. Last 2 years. All right. Now, if you want, you can also go ahead and let's keep long and very long. See what kind of, let's do this. Again, I'm trying to do some stuff that's different than what I did previously in other models. I want to look at small greens. We have small greens here. They are, about 5,000 square foot on average. So I'm going to look at small greens, long rough. I'm going to have to mess around with the sample. Let's see what we're going to do with this. I did not look at this yet. I'm going to see if we can get something that's worthwhile. And I want to look at approach on a decent sample. Last 2 years. All right, guys, right around kind of the threshold that I like, around at least 30 rounds played. If you want, again, these are highlighted. You can see here, I can click into this and you can go ahead and go to that person's page and it'll show you all the rounds that are in the sample that we're looking to pull. So if you want to see all the Adam Svensson rounds on golf courses with small greens and long rough, you'll be able to do that. So let's look here, approach in this bucket. Interesting. All right. Tony Finau at the top. And again, Finau, if you need a top 10 at the Farmers, he has been printing those over the last 7-8 years. Shane Lowry, Troy Merritt, Alex Smalley, Rio Hasasune, top 5. It's nice, smaller sample relative to the fields, but kid can play. Putting needs some work. See here, Ben Silverman and Keegan Bradley, Aaron Rye, Max Homa, Mark Hubbard. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't looked at this. Again, sample is kind of on the threshold of what I like, but I'm going to use it because I think it's what we have this week. Sometimes this is what I would say is overfitting a little bit, but we're going to give it a shot here. Small greens, long, rough. And that's the strokes gained approach. All right, perfect. Let's see any large overarching thoughts here. I don't typically mess with field strength very much. I would assume this would probably be an average to week at this point, which is very interesting. You can get into, again, fairway service, rough surface. We're thick rough all the way around. If you want to get into any other William Bell designs, it is here for you. All right, what I want to do next is off the tee. I'm going to go off the tee, club, driver heavy. We looked at this data yesterday. Driver usage here about 10% higher than a tour average event. It matters a lot. You have to get down there. So let's see here. What do we want to do with off the tee, club, driver heavy? A couple different ways we can go about this. This is another area where I think looking at ball striking makes a ton of sense, because really what we're trying to do is how when you have to go driver heavy, not just off the tee. And again, off the tee is a great spot too. You get a very large sample. Ludwig, Vegas, Toasty, Bramlett list at the very top. Other elite drivers of the golf ball are up there too, and see some guys that have performed well here in the past. That makes some sense. I'm going to throw that in here. We'll just do off the tee, driver heavy. I also like to look at ball striking because I really think that's also part of what we're trying to do. But we just did ball striking in another view. I'll leave that off here, but you can see some of the names that are also up here. Again, Woodland and getting carried with his outstanding approach numbers, absolute garbage. It's just interesting to see some of these guys that are just bright red in putting. And then the ball striking and approach is elite. So really what we need to do is here, this jumps out. If it doesn't, if you look at this and this 10, this green for Ludwig doesn't jump out like a sore thumb. And I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, he is at the top here of off the tee and ball striking. And he's the only dude that's doing that is not just not awful at putting, but very strong putter there as well. Next time you get that is Michael Thor Bjornsson, smaller sample again for Thor, Aaron Rye as well. Again, getting it done off the tee from an accuracy standpoint, but still gaining on the field that way. Thigala and Carson Young, next couple guys there. Pendrith not too far behind. I know he's a popular click for folks this week, but definitely an interesting way to look at that as well with off the tee club. Great way to look at that this week. All right. Not a huge missed fairway penalty, kind of. I mean, rough penalty, you can look at that as well because it is, about a third of a stroke. I looked at it in my model. Because again, it's really hard unless you have a ton of distance. These are small greens, obviously just science of golf. It's harder to control your ball out of the rough, especially to be able to get spin on the ball, hold the greens on these smaller greens. That's a little bit trickier. So that matters quite a bit. All right, we see some other stuff here. What else do we want to do? I looked at ball striking. We looked at approach, ball striking on long golf courses. We looked at approach here on small greens with long rough, which I think is a good way to do it in a unique way too. You could also look at long golf courses with smaller greens too, and kind of pull the rough out if you don't think that that's a thing. I want to get into the hybrid total driving. I did a little video for our Twitter page yesterday talking about it. Total driving, a common stat that people are talking about this week. I think that total driving is a very flawed stat. I think it's hard to argue that it's not. If you're not familiar, it is a combination of two rank stats, 50-50 split. How do you perform in driving distance? And then how do you perform in driving accuracy? Take your totals there, where you rank on the tour, add those numbers up. Smaller number wins. That is your total driving number. Now, we have that here. You can go into the view off the tee, and we can look at total driving and just see where people rank. I don't love total driving for a few reasons, but here's the top of the board of it. Luke Clanton, small sample, but long and straight. You can see here Clanton, third in accuracy, 21st in distance. Ludwig, number 2, again, top 20 in both metrics. I believe the only guy that can claim that. Fishburne, Rico Hoey, Matt McCarty, Matthew Pavon, again, your defending champ, Austin Eckroat, Siwoo Kim, Max Gracerman, Jason Day, rounding out your top 10. So that's fine. Part of it is I just don't like driving accuracy. We'll talk about this all the time in the show. We'll do it again if you're new. It's a binary yes/no stat. It does not tell a really predictive story, and that's really what we're trying to do with this, is use the data, descriptive data, and have it be front-facing and predictive. And part of the flaw with driving accuracy, again, is a binary yes/no, fairway hit or fairway missed. And it is just not really indicative of what we're trying to do. Because again, if you are in the first cut, you're an inch or 2 inches off the fairway, that's a no from a driving accuracy standpoint. But if you're in the woods, it's the same thing, right? If you absolutely spray it and you are just having a chip out to get safe, you just got the same grade on the test from an accuracy standpoint that Ludwig did by hitting it too far and running through the fairway and into the rough. Distance from the edge of the fairway is a far superior stat. I beg of you to use it in place at any time that you're really looking for driving accuracy. If you want to look at all of them and have distance from the edge of the fairway and driving accuracy, fine by me. I just think it is a significantly better indicator of what we're trying to do by looking at driving accuracy. Because again, it keeps you basically, are you in play? What's your like, how wide is your distribution when you miss? We don't want that shot dispersion to be really wide. We want it to be tight. So this tells a better story about your dispersion, distance from the edge of the fairway. Again, you're going to get some correlation here to driving accuracy. When you look here at the top of the board, this is a really large sample of guys. So again, we don't have any filters on. So just look at the last 12 months. We'll dial it in a little bit. There's going to be some guys that do well on both. That makes sense. But there are going to be some gaps and some guys sometimes where you're like, well, that, I don't like how that affects him. So again, you're top of the board. Distance from the edge of the fairway last calendar year. Molinari, Rye, Blair, Siwoo, Griot, Matt McCarty, Tristan Lawrence, Zach Johnson, and Sanjay. Putnam right there as well. You can see some of these guys doing pretty well. If you look at driving accuracy, if we look at the inverse here, some accuracy guys that are poor from a distance from the edge of the fairway, and you start to get a little bit bigger. Here's Pavon, 53rd in the field in distance from the edge of the fairway, 12th in accuracy. So misses can be a little bit more problematic. A little bit wider. Here's another one, Harry Higgs, 19th in accuracy, 81st in distance from the edge of the fairway. Troy Merritt, the same, 20th and 89th. So again, it just tells you that when they miss, the misses are wild, right? That ends up being a bogey or double bogey. And, that could be death, right? In some instances, that wildness can be into a penalty area. And now you're looking at crooked numbers. So it matters a lot. And I will, continue to bang the drum for distance from the edge of the fairway. So we're going to add that to the model here. And then this week in particular, because, and I again went over it a little bit yesterday, because we've had some instances where this place, and last year was one of them, where it was really wet. It had taken on a lot of rain, and you just didn't get the rollout that you typically would. I think this year probably plays a little bit firm and fast, but in a place where we need true distance, I like carry distance this week versus driving distance because it's really thick rough. You're not going to get any roll in that at all. So still, I'd rather have you way far down there versus if you rely a lot on accuracy and your distance comes from sometimes, rolling it out there another extra 15 to 20 yards. I think this is a really great week for carry distance over driving distance. So, and this is another spot where you can look at some of the deltas between how guys play carry distance wise and driving distance. You can see, where guys get some of their bump. So if you look here at driving distance, like a Toasty, for instance, top of the board in driving distance in the field over the last calendar year, 27th in carry distance. 27th in carry distance is still very good, but he's getting a lot in rollout here. And you can look by average. We're looking at rank, but you can actually want to see what that number is. We can click into average here and look at that as well. And again, he's strong in both, but getting a lot of rollout there. So I want to look at carry distance. Again, it's easier to look at this when we look at ranking to see where the gap is between guys. But we'll go to carry distance. Thor Bjornsson, top of the board. Again, smaller sample, but 36 rounds. We know the kid can bomb it out there. Not surprising. Pendrith right behind. Bramlett, Hayden Springer, Gary Woodland, Chris Goddard. Do you see some of these guys too? Bright red distance from the edge of the fairway, a little less encouraging. Kirk Kitayama, though, that looks nice. Trey Mullinax, Matty Schmidt, Will Gordon. There's Ludwig. Again, Jaeger, Finau, Keegs, Hoey. So I like carry distance this week, guys, and I think that's what we're going to build into our makeshift total driving model this week. Now, I typically will look at driving distance, and you can add driving distance as well. Like I said, just like if you want to add driving accuracy to your total driving, knock yourself out. It's your model. You can do whatever you like. But I think carry is the better way to go about things this week. All right. I think that captures a lot of what I wanted to do from a ball striking standpoint. Scrambling matters a little bit this week. Around the green is going to matter a little bit. When you look at some of the stats, and again, something you looked at a little bit yesterday on the Monday show, it's not a great place to separate. Again, you are going to have to scramble a little bit because they are smaller greens. You are coming from, deeper out, so it's harder to hold the greens. But it's not something I want to weigh a ton. But we'll look at it. I want to do a couple of short game things here, and we'll do that now. You could do a few different ways. We'll go around the green. Let's see here. Go scrambling from the rough. You can do strokes gained around the green. We have around the green proximity. Sand saves, just straight up scrambling. The scrambling demand this week is from the rough versus short grass. Typically, you'll have some events, typically majors. You'll see some short grass. It is a significantly more challenging skill to scramble from around the green with the short grass, but we are scrambling from the rough this week. So last 12 months, scrambling from the rough. Matteo Menacero, small sample here on the state side, but getting it done. Hideki, Norlander, Ludwig, Sanjay, Higgs, Silverman, Grayson Sigg, Ben Griffin, Patrick Fishburne are your best rough scramblers over the last 12 months. I'm going to do rough scrambling. And then I want to look at putting two different ways. I will continue to do this as well. I've touched on this in previous shows. I apologize if you've heard me say it before, but I will touch on it real quick. I think sometimes we overfit with putting splits on grass surfaces. I think it's important. I think the data on the tails in particular matters a lot. And what I mean by that is if you are really good on a particular putting surface, and in this instance, really good above your baseline, right? Then I think there's something to it. If you are good on this bumpy California POA, there's, especially over a large sample size, whether you as a golfer or not believe that you have an advantage there, you do. You probably get lost in the minutia in the middle. And also the same thing, if you're a poor POA putter over a large sample, whether you believe it or not, there's probably something there that we need to be looking into. Talked with Jordan Spieth about this last year. Spieth believes that he believes if he's putting well, it doesn't really matter what the surface is. If he's rolling it and can control his speed, that there's maybe some nuance, but it's probably a pretty noisy data sample. Again, I believe that on the tails, really good, really poor, there's something there. So anytime I'm building a model and adding putting to it, I'm just going to look at baseline putting, and then maybe I'll get into some of the granular stuff. I think that that's what I want to do here, because I think, if you're just a strong putter, that's going to show up everywhere. But what I'm going to do this week, a little bit different, is these are fast greens. And for my baseline putting, without messing around with green surface, I just want to look at who puts well on fast greens in general. So I'm going to back up my sample because I don't think we're going to get a huge sample for these guys over the last 12 months on fast greens. So we're kind of there, 40-ish rounds. It's pretty good, to be honest. Let's just see. We'll back out. Last 2 years, fast greens. And then what I want to look at is putting on this POA, this California POA. So fast greens, your top putters. Last 2 years, Taylor Montgomery, Harris English, Thomas Dietrich, Alejandro Tosti, Ben Griffin, Ludwig, Homa, Jason Day, Matt McNeely, Adam Schenk. You can see Sam Ryder's flirted with some solid finishes here. We got Dylan Wu, Hostler, Rose. That makes some sense. So we're going to go putting fast greens. And now I want to look at a sample where we're going to pull fast greens out, and we're just going to look at this California POA. We were on POA Triv last week. This is straight POA. The North Course is the cards that we get. The information has bent as the green surface. I heard some folks believe that there's kind of a hybrid there, but I'm going to look at POA. Bent more of a pure surface. If you're a good putter, good on fast greens, that's fine. But I want to really get an understanding of trying to pick a winner. We got 3 rounds on this California POA. It is unique and different, so I want to see who puts better on that stuff. We don't get a lot of it, so your sample size is relatively small and just maybe a little short of relevant. So I'm going to back out a little bit longer. Part of it is the sample size filter that I have on. I might back this down a little bit. Again, it's going to bring in some other smaller samples, but I want to get a sense of who puts well here. And again, we're going to weigh it smaller relative to the other stats too, so it doesn't matter too much. Best POA putters in this field: Max Homa, Taylor Montgomery, Peter Mulnally, S.H. Kim, Matt McNeely, Jason Day, Nate Lashley, Lanto Griffin, Adam Schenk, Sanjay M. So pretty good sample. You see some other names that we had been touching on that have popped up, guys that have played well here in the past as well, also showing up here in the POA splits. And I think that's it. I think that's all I'm going to do. It's enough for us. Again, you've had too much of just me this week, so let's build this model out. Again, if building this is new or looking at this is new and intimidating, I promise it's easier. That's why we're doing kind of the shows and content this way, because I want people to be able to see it in action. There are some tutorials. You can go up into this link here. Ron's built a bunch of these out, showing you how to use it. There's kind of a basic one that I did when we first launched. We have so many more stats than we did then now. But again, if you just want to get a basic understanding of how to do it, those tutorials are super helpful. But jump in the Discord if you're a subscriber, and you have a model sharing channel. You could share your model, get feedback on it. I think it's a really great way to kind of build a community and help understand how we land on the guys that we do. So all right, we got 9 things here. This is our Tuesday show model. Let's see what we get, and we'll talk about some betting opportunities here. All right, some of the ones I did at the top, some of the core strokes gain categories are the ones that I want to give a little bit more weight to. So let's look at difficult scoring conditions. We'll go, let's go 20. Ball striking long and very long. I want that to be a core model as well. I'm going to back out here. My short game stuff, I'll give 15 total to short game. And we'll go from here. Let's see. Carry distance and distance from the edge of the fairway. This is my hybrid total driving. Let's see if we go 12.5 here each. We'll give 25 to total driving. Off the tee, driver heavy. We'll do this, and we'll go 10 for approach on small greens. Again, there's some double counting in here, but if I'm going to double count, I want it to be on approach. I want it to be on ball striking. This week, I might want it a little bit off the tee. So I like this. I'm good with this. Because again, the thing I want to weigh a little bit lighter than everything else is the around the green short game stuff. And that's just getting, 15% of our model. So I'm good with that. So I'll save this and we'll go in. Once you start building a bunch of models, you'll have a section of all your managed models you have back. You can run old models. So I didn't, but I can go down here and find last year's Torrey Pines model, the one we built in the show here last year, and I can just run that as well. See what I did differently, see what I liked. That's an option as you continue to build out more and more models. All right, let's see what we get at the top. I'm going to talk about some of the betting opportunities here. I think it's going to be Ludwig, just a guess. All right, top of the model. Ludwig, Max Homa, Sanjay M are your top 3. Shane Lowry, Hideki Matsuyama, Tony Finau right behind. Rounding out your top 10, Thigala, Keegan Bradley, Joseph Bramlett, deep pull, and Doug Gim. That rounds out the top 10 of the model. You can see too, this is, we have DraftKings salaries in here as well from a DFS standpoint. I think it's a great indicator to get a sense of, maybe some bombs, some guys that are a little bit further. You can see Bramlett, sub 7K on DraftKings, but top 10 in the model. And again, probably a popular name this week. Bramlett has played some of his best golf when it's harder. You can do this too. You can click on any name here in the rabbit hole. We'll just click on Joseph Bramlett. It takes you to their player page. I absolutely love our player pages and recommend that you kick around on these as well. This is a rolling 12 months here from a strokes gain standpoint. But again, you can look at any view that we have available in the rabbit hole as well. Get a sense of what Bramlett's doing over the last 12 months. These player breakdowns are last 6 months, but again, you can mess around with the samples here. You can mess around again from a time frame or a rounds played standpoint as well. So if you look at Bramlett last 12 months, get a little bit of a bigger sample size. Not a closer, Joseph Bramlett. Slowly gets worse as the lights get brighter. So tough to sell me on a win on Joseph Bramlett, but first round leader or to make the cut. Sure. And then this is what's always really interesting to me. How does he play when these scoring conditions are harder? Bramlett's not a guy you want to go to in birdie fest necessarily, it looks like. When it is difficult and very difficult, Joseph Bramlett is really good. Now, stronger fields, not so much. Again, these are really small. You can like hover over this too, and I'll tell you how many rounds. So this is only 2 rounds. So this does not do him many favors here. But same thing. When the course is really long, he's someone we want to consider. And that's what we have here too. This approach proximity, the colors are based on relative to PGA Tour average. The darker green is good. The darker the green, the better. You can see as a dark green 200 plus for Joseph Bramlett on an 87 round sample. It's pretty encouraging because we have a lot of that this week. So you see, same thing, 250 plus. So this is where his distance really comes into play, his advantage, and that's why he's popping in the model. He's played his best in these, and we gave a lot of weight to those situations. But again, you can go down here and look at rolling strokes gained, see what the golfer is doing well currently. See, Bramlett's putter has been better as of late. Finishing position summary. This is fantastic. Just a sense of how frequently they are winning golf tournaments, top 5s all the way to top 40s, made cuts, and the made cuts filters out, especially for signature events now, that filters out the non-cut events. So the made cut, you're only getting credit for a made cut if you're playing in a event with a cut, if that makes sense. And then you get just the recent events played and their strokes gained in those events. So see Bramlett. We haven't seen him in a little while. So this, recent sample of stuff is a little bit noisy, but again, played some good golf when the test is longer. So you can do that by clicking on any golfer in the rabbit hole. It'll take you to their player page. Once you get there, you can literally poke anyone up here. So we'll look at Ludwig. You want to see what a top 10 golfer in the world looks like on the player page? I recommend going to Ludwig's player page. Poitriv, smaller sample, not great, but we're on Poa this week. Ludwig, doesn't matter. It's just very green. This is outstanding. None of this matters. It's just a really, 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 really good golfer. You can see recent events played. You can get all that down here for Ludwig as well. So recommend messing around with player pages. It's great. I bet Ludwig at Open. I bet Ludwig here last year. And if he didn't miss some like real short tap in almost putts on like Wednesday and Thursday, he's very, very, very much in the mix on the final round. Instead, T9. This is just an automatic Ludwig course for me. Long and straight off the tee. Elite long irons, good POA putter. If we kind of scroll across and see where he is in everything that we put in this model, there is no red on Ludwig's in Ludwig's columns, right? Like it's basically top 10 or top 20 in most, multiple 1s and 2s. He's just he's I think separating himself. So I played Ludwig at 11. It's obviously shorter now. Try to play Ludwig at 12, but DraftKings is not a real sports book. They would not take a full size bet for me on Ludwig. If you're not taking a full stake that I want to bet on a golf outright, what are we doing? Like, it's insane, but whatever. But Ludwig at 11, fine for me. You're obviously not getting that anymore. I just think he's winning this week. It's crazy to say, especially with some of the WDs at the top and the Morikawa, Xander, Cantley not here, guys that would expect to be here. And I still thought we were going to get Ludwig around this number that we got. Ludwig basically right now, if you go into the futures market and try to bet him at any of the majors, he's between like 12 and 16 across the board. We get him here. Again, not that he's not a great fit for any of the places that we're teeing up for the majors this year, but we're getting me here in a significantly weaker field. No Scotty, no Bryson, no Brooks, no Xander. Again, all these guys that are not here, no Rahm. We're getting it for basically is very, very similar price. So Ludwig is a great price. I'm encouraged that Max Homa, the swing changes, equipment changes. He seems to be optimistic. I want to wait and see it a little bit. I do think the Max is interesting in the price point that he was at. Let me see what the shortest number is on Max right now to win. In the 30s is interesting. He did probably take a little bit of a dive. You could still get 33s on Max. FanDuel 33. MGM, Fanatics, Chris is out at 32 and change. He's won here in the past. We saw some of the stuff with, Max better when the test is a little bit harder. Great, obviously, California POA putter. Sanjay let a lot of people down last week. He's third in our model here. Didn't make the cut. Approach is really wonky. I thought he was going to be in the mix, and again, like him in Birdie Fest, but he's played well here in the past. 18, 16. Just really short for me for Sanjay. Again, a great golfer, always in the mix. You can sell me on a finishing position bet, but it's just a little short for me from an outright standpoint, even in a weaker field. Hideki, obviously, playing great golf. Fifth in the model here. Previous winner. Basically 11 across the board. I understand why someone would want to go to Hideki. Ludwig for me over Hideki. Just here, which is tough to say. Again, Hideki has won here. I would expect Hideki to show up and play very well. He gets sometimes just white hot, and he is literally, when he's in those moments, could be a stretch of holes, could be a round. Sometimes it's a tournament, and he's like the best player in the world when he like blacks out. Like Hideki here. Again, talked about Finau. Finau looking like 22, 29 on Chris. Actually, probably a pretty good number on Finau. Again, has not won here, but basically consistently inside the top 10, often in the mix. Again, long and straight, great long iron player, just a great ball striker. It all comes down to his, short game for that week. Let's look at, again, Bramlett. I'm not interested in Bramlett to win, but we can look at some finishing position stuff. Keegan, 8 in the model. I love Keegs. You know that. We're a little short, but he's also the same price as Finau. For me, especially, again, he's almost the same as Finau across the board, except Chris. If you can get the 29 on Chris, if you're betting offshores or doing, that stuff, then that's probably the best way to go about that range, I think, on the betting board. Zalatoris also very popular. Makes sense. Playing better, healthy, has played well here in the past. Again, another elite ball striker. Numbers a little short for me. But again, you can find 25 on FanDuel. I don't hate it. For me, kind of, bought out of this range when I went to the top with Ludwig for a sizable bet, at 11. So I didn't really swim around in the 20 to 30 range. Again, pretty good gap after Ludwig and Hideki in this mid 20 range. So I skipped it. I went down a little bit further. I like those guys. I think I understand why people are on Thigala. I think that makes some sense too. He's just really hard for me. There's just a level of inconsistency in terms of, I think the ceiling is as high as most of these guys. Just week to week ball striking consistency, I need to see a little bit more. That's kind of bared out here in the distance from the edge of the fairway here. He can just sometimes get himself these blow up holes need to go away. Lowry modeling pretty well for us. Down the board from a betting standpoint, there are 35s on Lowry. Yeah, I love Shane Lowry as a golfer, so I understand why someone would want to go there. Again, approach on these smaller greens is really nice. You see just strokes gained total. We looked at difficult scoring conditions. That's been pretty solid too. So I understand why someone's in on Lowry. I went with the kid, the next bet that I made. Oh, first of all, I went with Akshay at 55. I thought 55 was such a bad number for Akshay. Again, another guy that can be pretty long and straight off the tee. Ball striking is fantastic. Good California POA putter. I had some hesitation coming in because I thought, he's coming from Dubai. short turnaround with the golf starting on Wednesday, but then I thought he was going to be 28 to 30. I thought 55 was an egregious number on Akshay, but he, another WD, another top tier talent, top 30 golfer in the world who took himself out of this event. So I had money to spare, and I went with Luke Clanton. And again, sample size on Luke Clanton is really small. You can see not in the top 10 of our model. Part of that's going to be because we're not going to get some sample size for Clanton that that we would want to see. You can just search and see where I got Clanton. Yeah, see, a lot of this is just, he's pulled out of our sample, so he's not going to model very well. But let's look at Luke Clanton's player page. You could see why I made this click. Now, again, small sample, hasn't played much yet. But he is pretty good. I mean, this is where I'm at here. This is bright green. Look at these proximity numbers. I mean, we're not even touching 50 here. And again, this is a super small 250 sample. So I'm not super worried about it. And yeah, we have some more longer irons here than normal, but because he's so long off the tee, he's going to be living here in the 200 to 250 range, more so than anything 250 plus. And I mean, this proximity number, that's even shorter than this one. And this one's great too. So long irons, absolutely fantastic. I mean, the ball striking numbers are through the roof for the young Luke Clanton. You can see here, ball striking around the green is, sometimes a noisy stat anyway. Don't weigh in a ton. If he's going to win the golf tournament, he's probably not needing to rely on the around the green too much. But again, we're around the green, rough, thicker rough here. It's a little bit easier. So I like Clanton here. And you just look at the ball striking every time he tees it up, approach ball striking. It's just really good, really consistent. Again, small sample, but he's long and straight off the tee, and the long iron game is fantastic. So again, didn't model well because I pushed him out based off of our sample size stuff, but that's okay. So I got a 45 on Clanton. I just love the course fit. I think this is a course fit week more so than anything, even more so than form, just because you can have really good form, and this is just not a great course fit for you. So some other names that I like, let's see here that popped. We talked about Bramlett. Doug Gim, hard to make a model. Doug Gim doesn't show up well in, but you can see carry distance and putting, driving down on him there. People like Steven Yeager quite a bit. I understand that. He's played well on long golf courses, Memorial Park in Houston last year, where he held off Scotty. It's a long golf course. Scoring conditions were difficult. Yeager was in the mix here last year as well. 65 still available, 66 on Yeager. I understand that quite a bit. I went with the next guy on the list, Thomas Dietrich. 70s are available on Dietrich. Better number than I got on Monday morning at 66. Dietrich has got to figure out how to close. It's not been a great finisher, but he was in the mix here last year. Bad final round, 74, knocked him down the board. But heading into the weekend, he was just 2 shots off the lead. Another player that was top 2 behind Yeager, tied with Scotty at Memorial Park. He also was T4 at Quail Hollow for the PGA Championship. He was T14 Pinehurst for the U.S. Open. Really strong fields, long golf courses where scoring conditions are a little bit harder and the golf courses are long. So I like Dietrich. The approach game isn't great, but the approach game on longer irons, longer golf courses, if you went to the player page, you could poke around and see that. I liked him quite a bit. And in the hybrid total driving model, I can see here he is, 30, sub 30 in both. In the model alone, he was 6th. So I like him quite a bit in the total driving hybrid model that we need this week. So I like him. See Zalatoris, touched on him. Gary Woodland, I think he's a very interesting long shot bomb here if you want to throw some money on a longer shot winner, but I think he's now taking some money, and he's probably sub 100. You can get a 90 on him still. And I think that's really interesting. I think Woodland, from a finishing position standpoint, is pretty good. 3.5, 4 to 1 to top 20. You probably get pretty good odds on a T40 on him. I like that quite a bit on Gary Woodland. Kurt Kitayama, another guy that I think from a finishing position standpoint, I like. We saw him, he's 35th, 35 to 1 or so. Like him there too. And again, there's some names here that are a little bit down the board that, if you're wanting to bet outright, I understand it, but they're modeling pretty well. And that tells you maybe you need to look at finishing position bets. Pendrith's a guy that's pretty popular, but Aaron Rye probably keeps himself in the mix. Again, Gim, Bramlett, those guys are guys that I want to kind of float around from a finishing position standpoint. So, all right. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Again, it's been a lot of me. I apologize. Betsperts Golf. Check it out. You want to check out a month for cheap? $10. Use promo code MONTH10. $10 first month. Check it out. Get your feet wet. Play around with it. When you get it in now, you'll get through, get obviously Pebble Beach. You'll get our Genesis, which we're coming back here. So you can build a model for this week. And we're coming back here for that as well. It's worth checking out. So let's see here. We didn't update this. Yeah. $29.99 typically for a month, but $10 with the promo code MONTH10. Check it out. Let me know if you have any questions. Reach out to me on Twitter here at Ryan Noonan, at Betsperts Golf on Twitter as well, betspertsgolf.com. Thanks, everyone.